Tonight is the 2-month anniversary of the Sweat Lodge ceremony inside of this makeshift structure in Sedona, Arizona, in which 3 people died.
Is this result of a shooting or something?
No, it was a sweat lodge.
A sweat lodge?
Yes.
Okay.
A ceremony led by New Age guru James Ray.
There's at least one area of your life where you know you deserve more.
A disaster and a falling from grace that has focused a harsh spotlight on the $11 billion a year unregulated self-help industry. Since the deaths, we've heard very little from any of the survivors or from James Ray himself. But now, an exclusive interview with this former James Ray employee, Melinda Martin, who knows the inner workings of Ray's secretive and lucrative organization and who was on the scene at the Sweat Lodge.
The paramedics arrived and they came. The guy's like, "What happened here? Is this like a mass suicide?" He said to me. And I said, "No, it was a sweat lodge gone wrong."
So the first responder says to you, "Is this a mass suicide?"
Yeah.
That's how bad the scene looked.
Yes.
Martin, who's a former real estate agent, took a job with James Ray International about a year ago after listening to some of his motivational tapes.
Let's use this metaphor. If you think about Aladdin and his lamp, you've probably heard of that one.
His message, featured in the best-selling book and DVD, The Secret, that you can get whatever you want through the power of your thoughts, resonated with her.
We now think that there's 3 wishes, but if you trace the story back to its origins, there's absolutely no limit whatsoever to the wishes. Think about that one.
But when Melinda Martin went to work for James Ray, she says she found him personally disappointing, especially after she says she was told that employees were not allowed to address him directly.
So you work for the man, but you're not allowed to talk to him.
Right.
What was the reason for this?
James was on a pedestal. And he lived in Beverly Hills, and he very, very rarely came to the office. And when he would come to the office, he was very quiet.
During the so-called spiritual warrior event in Sedona, the one with the Sweat Lodge, Melinda Martin says her role was to greet the guests and to help oversee some of the exercises, including something called breath work.
That's where you lay down on a mat and they put the lights down off and just candles, and we have very loud music, and the people put themselves in a altered state by their breath work, and they go for 2 hours.
2 hours?
2 hours straight of this hyperventilation breathing.
And what happens to you?
Well, it sort of tricks your mind. You go into an altered state. And people start screaming and yelling and flipping around. I was physically walking around and seeing how these people were flailing around.
Can you understand how to an outsider that would sound a little strange?
It is strange.
It got even more strange, she says, when James Ray organized a game about death based in part on the movie The Last Samurai.
James, his role was God. So he wore white robes, and he was God, and no one was allowed to talk to God.
You were dressed up as an angel of death.
I was an angel of death, and I had black lipstick on, black around my eyes. You know, we all had Grim Reaper costumes on.
What was the point of this game?
I'm not, to live with honor, to die with honor, maybe?
On day 5, the Sweat Lodge ceremony. Roughly 60 people were squeezed into this makeshift structure while searingly hot rocks were brought inside. Melinda Martin was stationed on the outside.
When did you realize that something was going wrong in there?
After the first round, when the door opened and people came out, I was shocked. I was shocked at the condition of the people that came out. A girl comes out and she was hysterical. She was crying, telling me, "This is bad, this is bad. I don't like this. I want to go back to the way I was. Please, please. I don't like this. This is bad."
As the ceremony went on, the injuries got worse.
I had another guy come out and he was screaming at the top of his lungs, "I don't want to die. Please don't let me die. Please, please save me. I'm dying, I'm dying." He was screaming so loud, and that's when I was looking at him, and I'm looking around like this, and I'm doing everything I can to put water on people to bring the heat down. Now I was dealing with people in trances and saying they were dying, and their arms' skin was gone. I mean, this was right away.
So this sounds like a horror show.
It was. One guy, he had fallen into the pit in the middle, fallen into a pit of molten rocks, and he had burned his entire arm, and all the white of his skin was gone, and the skin was just basically hanging off of his elbow. So down his leg, down both sides of his arms, and he was sitting there staring, not reacting to the burned arm. And I was trying to take care of him, and his entire mindset was getting back into there. He said, I'm not done. I've got to go back in. I said, no, you don't have to go back in. You've done it. You're okay. No, no, no. This is wrong. I've got to go. Why did this happen? Why am I here? I need to go back. And as soon as the flap opened, boom.
He went back in?
He went back in.
Martin says at this point she wanted to call 911, but she says Ray's staffers told her no.
And they told me that that wasn't something that would be done, because in the past 911 had been called, and James got very, very angry at the person who called 911. So that had already been squashed. So I was in the mode of taking care of people. And they told me, Melinda, get the look off of your face because you're scaring people. You're going to make people think this isn't normal.
So James Ray's staffers told you, fix your face so you don't scare people?
Correct. Because I had this look of like, what the heck?
Did anybody reach inside the sweat lodge and say, we got people in trouble out here?
People were being dragged out right in front of James.
So he had to have known that things were...
I don't know. All I know is it was quickly becoming like a MASH unit. People were vomiting, projectile vomiting everywhere. People were laying in vomit, and they didn't even care because they were suffering so badly.
Okay, so when James Ray exits the sweat lodge and sees this panorama, what is his reaction?
Well, I just happened to be on that side of the tent when James came out. And he came out, and he stretched his arms up, and everybody hosed him off, and he was like, hey, thanks. And his assistant came out, and they just looked amazing. And it really stopped me in my tracks. I just stopped, and I said, how can you walk out of there when all of these people are down, and they look near death, and you guys can walk out there looking like you just spent the day in a spa? It was incredible to me. When he walked out and he made a right-hand turn and he went to go sit down and get a drink of water, the guy who had been screaming at me saying he didn't want to die, I'm dying, please don't let me die. James walked by him and he goes, hey, I died and I came back to life. And James was like, yeah, man, gave him a high five. And, I think James didn't really realize to what extent all this stuff was going on.
As Martin performed CPR on a dying woman, she says her boss simply stared.
And I look up and he's standing right over my head, watching. He's watching from stand-up position. He didn't offer to help. He didn't say anything, nothing at all. And he was like kind of just looking around. I'm sure he was shocked, but so was I. But that didn't stop me from getting down on the ground and, working and trying to get people back to life.
Did you see him do anything to help anybody?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
In response to Melinda Martin's allegations, James Ray International released to ABC News sworn statements from 2 participants at the event, including one that said, my impression was that James Ray was stunned about what was happening and was attempting to help as many people as he could. I do not feel there was any more James Ray could have done. However, Ray did refuse to give a statement to police at the scene, and then he simply left town. After that, according to Melinda Martin, Ray's organization tried to downplay the deaths. Here's what she says happened when she called into the office from the hospital the next day.
I called James Ray International when it opened in the morning to try to see if I can find any information on these people. And they answered the phone, it's an outstanding day at James Ray International. And I said, no, it is not an outstanding day at James Ray International. And they said, why? Just because people took ill in the sweat lodge?
Took ill?
Took ill in the sweat lodge. I said, that's what they told you? They took ill? And she said, yes. What happened? It was like they were trying to wipe it off like it didn't happen.
Several weeks later, Melinda Martin says she stopped receiving paychecks.
What are your views on him now, after all of this?
I'm really sad by this whole thing. I'm sad for him. I'm sad for all the people. I'm sad for everything.
Ray has not spoken publicly since he abruptly canceled this speaking event in Toronto in October, although his website says his team is providing information to the police, who are still actively investigating the sweat lodge deaths as homicides.
Beautiful.
As allegations mount about Ray pushing his followers too hard, we have new details tonight about another death that took place at another James Ray event just months before the sweat lodge.